So you are longing for an all-new Samsung smartphone but don't fancy shelling out of a top-tier handset like the Galaxy S23? That's where the A series comes in. There are some Xiaomi's most popular handsets regularly appearing in best mid-range phone lists, and now there are two new versions vying for your cash. The Samsung Galaxy A54 is the highlight, bringing a refined design and a big battery at sensible money. It was revealed alongside the Galaxy A34, an even more affordable alternative with a few hardware changes but built very much in the same mold. We gave both to go at Samsung's London Experience Store ahead of launch to see if they have a strong family resemblance or if they are more like that distant cousin you don't speak about during reunions. Yes, that definitely is the new Galaxy A54 in the above photos and not a Galaxy S23. Looks similar, right? It's a little thicker and with chunkier display bezels, but otherwise the design is basically carried over piecemeal with flat glass set into a metal frame. Even the trio of bare camera lenses stacked in a vertical line make an appearance at the rear. There's also an in-display fingerprint sensor, Gorilla Glass protection and IP rating, although it uses Gorilla Glass 5 instead of newer Victus 2, and tops out at IP67 rather than the Galaxy S23's tougher IP68. It still feels suitably premium even if the materials used aren't quite up to the same standard, and the glossy reflective rear glass isn't nearly as good at hiding fingerprints as the phone is styled on. A handful of pastelish color options aren't precise match for the S23, so are a good way to tell the two phones apart. At 6.4 inch, it's comfortable enough to hold one-handed even if you have got diminutive digits. The power and volume keys are sensibly spaced apart on the right side of the phone, and the speaker sits in a familiar spot on the bottom edge. With a paltry 0.2 inch difference in screen size, there's very little to physically separate the Galaxy A34 from its more expensive stablemate. The only indicator is the teardrop style notch for the front-facing camera. The Galaxy A54 gets a punch-hole cam instead. Otherwise, it's physically identical, complete with 3 rear camera lenses, right-mounted power and volume keys, and a USB-C port at the bottom alongside a speaker grill. There's no 3.5mm headphone jack port, just like last year's Galaxy A33. You can have one in the same 4 colors as the A54: awesome graphite, awesome silver, awesome lime, and awesome violet, because the A in the name seemingly had to stand for something, so awesome it is. Whether you go for the smaller phone or prefer a large display, you will be getting the same 2400 by 180 screen resolution, which looked decently crisp during our hands-on session. Even small text was perfectly legible, and photos show plenty of resolved detail as you'd expect from any full HD Plus phone. The Galaxy A34's AMOLED panel now has the same 120Hz refresh rate as its bigger brother, which gives it an edge over the Pixel 6a and its 90Hz panel. Both promise a peak 1000 nits brightness when stepping outside, which should mean visibility is never an issue. There aren't too many mid-rangers that can claim the same, with many topping out at dimmer 800 nits. We certainly had no trouble seeing what was on screen, even under bright studio lights, and an HDR trailer for the flash popped with bright colors alongside deep and dark shadows, with volume kept to a minimum in order to avoid irritating the assembled group of journalists. We can't pass judgment on the stereo speakers, but can guarantee you will want a pair of earphones for any critical listening. Both phones have 3 rear camera lenses, one wide angle, one ultra wide, and a macro. Phone photographers would appear to be better served by the Galaxy A54, which has higher pixel counts for its main and ultra-wide 50 megapixel and 12 megapixel respectively versus 48 megapixel and 8 megapixel in the A34. Both use a 5 megapixel sensor for macro shots. The A54 sensors are physically larger than the ones seen on the outgoing A53, and they have larger pixels to boot, which should make all the differences in low light. An auto night mode now kicks in when the ambient light sensor detects a lack of sunshine, and optical image stabilization has been optimized to cut down on camera shake too. We are not able to take our best snaps away with us for analysis and were confined to a demo area with bright overhead lighting, so can't judge how each device copes at night or outdoors. The camera app felt speedy enough to focus and save each shot, if not up the same rapid standard as the S23 series. You can expect the same sort of image processing, though meanwhile vibrant and dynamic shots that lean a little toward unnatural compared to anything Apple or Google will produce. Going purely by what we could see on screen, the main camera seemed to capture plenty of detail, but now it stacks up to similarly priced rivals. We'll have to wait until a full review. Internal hardware is where the two phones differ the most. While the Galaxy A54 gets one of Samsung's homegrown Exynos 1380 CPUs paired to 8GB of RAM, and A34 uses a MediaTek Dimensity 1080 chip, which isn't quite as beefy when it comes to performance. It will also come with 6GB of RAM if you go for the 128GB storage option. That amount gets boosted to 8GB if you step up to the more expensive 256GB model. Neither phone is going to trouble true flagships when it comes to benchmark leaderboards or even how snappy Android feels in day-to-day use. Apps still load reasonably quickly, however, and we could multitask without needing to constantly reload each subsequent app. That's partly down to a virtual RAM option, which pulls a part of the onboard storage to use an additional memory. Performance seemed on par for the cache, though we'll need to wait for a full review to see if a Tensor-equipped Pixel 6a or Qualcomm-powered Nothing Phone 1 would be better buy for gamers. Either way, you are looking at Android 13 out of the box with Samsung's One UI slathered on the top. It's about as fully featured as Android installs get, with lots of customization options and shortcut features. There are a handful of apps installed on our demo devices, but it's unclear if they're pre-installed by default or were added by Samsung's reps before we got there. Both phones have 5000 mAh batteries and support 25-watt charging, with Samsung promising at least 2 days of life beating top-ups. There's no wireless charging here. Samsung had to keep a few goodies for the full-fat Galaxy S23 after all. On the first inspection, the Galaxy A34 and A54 get closer than ever to distilling the essence of Samsung's flagship phones into much more affordable packages. They have got punchy displays, big batteries, and designs you have got to pay very close attention to in order to tell you aren't looking at a Galaxy S23. Water resistance, in-display fingerprint sensors, and the latest version of Samsung's One UI interface are all welcome inclusions for the cache. The expandable storage is something you won't even find on a top-tier Galaxy nowadays. The Galaxy A34's higher display refresh rate now makes it a more direct rival to Google Pixel 6a, and the A54's performance advantage should carry more gamer appeal. Each comes at a premium compared to mid-range models from rival brands, but they look like cost-effective upgrades for Samsung fans.